is never going to happen. The thing that you're most afraid of, from a statistical standpoint, that thing that's terrifying that might keep you up at night, the worst case scenario piece of it is so unlikely. Today, we're going to talk about an exercise that I learned from Tim Ferriss of the 4 Hour Work Week, and that is called fear setting. And I have my own little spin on it, and I like to share how that really just changed the way that I think about fear and how it impacts our lives and our decisions. It's bedhead day 23. If you're new to this uh, playlist, essentially I roll out of bed every single morning with whatever hair that I have and jump on camera to share an insight, a self reflection exercise in hopes that it will somehow help you, give you more courage to live more authentically today. So let's get under the hood just a little bit with fear. And essentially, this exercise is not going to be useful if you are in the middle of a disaster or chaos or danger. The point of this exercise is to really take some time to examine what's going on underneath of your discomforts. And I think of what Socrates said, that an unexamined life is not a life worth living. That's a pretty strong statement. I think there's possibly some people who live just fine when they're not looking under the hood. But if you find yourself stuck or holding back in places where you want to live more fully, this is a really valuable exercise. And it's very simple. You make a list of your fears. I would say probably relevant to what's going on in your life at the moment. But if you want to include the fear of getting bitten by a spider or the fear of getting trampled by a bull, go for it. It's there's value in examining all parts of ourselves. But essentially, what you do is you make your list of fears, and then you go through that list and you rate those fears on two different points. So, number one, you're going to rate your fears on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being like most afraid, of how emotionally charged that fear is for you. Like, is it just uncomfortable down near 1, or is it like an unholy terror that could send you into panic if you think about it too long? That being a 10. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid are you of this thing? So, one of my fears is tornadoes, dying in a tornado, getting trapped in my house because of a tornado. So, if I was to rate that on a scale of 1 to 10, it'd be pretty high up there, maybe like a 9.5 or so. It's terrifying to me, like the idea, when the tornado sirens go off, my blood pressure goes up and I get less rational. And so the next thing that you're going to do, you're rating the fear on a scale of 1 to 10 as how afraid of the thing you are, how emotionally charged it is, and then the next thing that you rate your fear on is going to be how likely it is to happen. And so in my case, I live in the middle of America. I'm in the northwest corner of Arkansas, near Missouri and Oklahoma. So we do get tornadoes, usually in the fall and in the spring. A couple years ago, a tree came down in the yard. Trees went down all over town. Definitely had tornado damage just a mile or two away. But the likelihood of me getting trapped under my house and dying from a tornado is still statistically pretty slim. Um, so what I really came to learn about this exercise, and I didn't really think about all of my biggest fears from this perspective. I think at the time it probably had to do with my business because my ex-husband and I had a waste hauling business, construction dumpsters for 6 years, and before that we had other businesses. So I've been in the entrepreneurial space for most of my adult life and career. Had what 3 or 4 different businesses, and mostly in service industries. So I'm sure that there was a lot of fear around that business because it did actually hit worst case scenario. We did go bankrupt with that company, and essentially we were doing our fear setting list. We probably did it together, but one of the things that I realized about that process is that the things that I was most afraid of, like 9 or 10 on that scale, 8, 9, 10, were actually the least likely to occur. But those were the charges emotionally that were driving my behaviors and my decision making. And I think another important thing to think about, like if you are struggling in a relationship and one of your most emotionally charged fears is that that relationship is going to end, I think it's also important to get to the fear underneath the fear. Because what are we most afraid of? If this relationship ends, then I'll never meet anybody. Then that means that I'm no good. That means that I'm unlovable. So, what's the meaning that we're making underneath the fear? So, that's another really important piece. So, for me, going bankrupt, the fear is that, well, I'll never have any money, or that means that I'm bad at managing a company, or that means that I'm a terrible person. Those are sort of some of those worst case scenarios as well that we can examine. And it was really a useful exercise, as I said, to realize that my biggest fears, the worst case scenarios, were least likely to happen. But also, when I get underneath that, if I look at the meaning behind those big fears, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's really relevant to the tornado, and I'm sidetracking on that, but um, what does that say about me? What does that mean underneath that? And I can start to discharge the deeper fear of being unlovable, of being rejected, of being abandoned, and those are really thoughts for another day, another video. I did a lot of work around that in 2025. Um, that we can get to. But for today, what fear is running in the background right now for you? Um, Maybe it's not in the driver's seat. Maybe it's not got a hold of the wheel, but it might be in the passenger seat doing some, as they call it, backseat driving. And if there's a fear that's kind of doing some backseat driving in your life, how likely is that fear? And what's the fear underneath the fear? Do you think taking a look at that could potentially help you be a little more objective about it? Um, Rating that fear on a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid of it you are and how likely it's going to happen. Do you think this exercise is useful? If so, I'd love to know. If you think it's BS, that's great feedback too. It helped me quite a bit with my own little epiphanies, but you may find that it's not the same for you. So, um, I always love your feedback. I love when you reach out to me directly. Makes my day and gives me really encouragement to keep doing this insane thing of jumping on a camera with no makeup and crazy hair every single day. So, wishing you a beautiful rest of your day, wherever you're tuning in from, whatever day that it is. It's a Saturday today, so I slept in a little bit. And yeah, wishing you a very authentic rest of your day.